was Iran able to fund all these things? The Biden administration was playing both arsonist and fireman. And in October 7th, in this is part of the argument in the article that I published with the Federalist, is that the Biden administration has gotten off of the hook for the fact that they were funding terrorism.
When I talk about the number of Muslims in the United States growing exponentially since the year 2000, Muslim immigrants into the United States, half of them have arrived since the year 2000. Think about the year 2000, Y2K. 9/11 happened the next year. Since then, 56% of the total population of Muslims in our country have arrived since then, which means that this was expedited, not just under a Democrat administration, but under a Republican administration, the Bush administration. In total, 63% of all Muslims in our country are immigrants. 15% are the children of immigrants. These are enormous numbers, and it's a deliberate political decision to allow this to happen. And again, I'll repeat this till the cows come home. To quote Hillary Clinton, it does not make me an Islamophobe or a xenophobe or a racist or a bigot to point this out because of the ideology held by Muslims in our country. A Pew Research poll from 2007 found 26% of young Muslims, that's Muslims between the ages of 18 and 29, here in the United States of America, believe that suicide bombings are justified. That's more than 1 in 4. In 2015, a polling company research project found that 19% of Muslim Americans, that's 1 out of every 5, say that violence is justified in order to make Sharia law the law of the land in the United States. Is this assimilation? Are these people Americans? Are we supposed to trust them? Are we supposed to feel safe that they have infiltrated our cities and our neighborhoods and our schools? 25% of Muslim Americans say that violence against Americans in the United States is justified as part of the global jihad. We felt the effect of this. Over the weekend, 3 of our fellow countrymen were murdered because they're Americans, because they're infidels, because Muslims in America, whether they're gotaways that were undetected during the Biden administration's open borders fiasco, whether they were momentarily captured before released into the United States again by Biden, or whether they're supposedly legal migrants who have been allowed here despite the obvious threats to our safety that exists in their ideological and religious beliefs. They're everywhere. And I want to bring on a man who is an expert in the Islamification of the United States. He's the author and host of Ideas Have Consequences, Larry Alex Taunton. Larry, good to see you again. Thanks for coming back on the show.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Liz.
Talk to me about the impact that Trump's attack on Iran is going to have on the Islamification of our country, but also these supposed sleeper cells that are, and when I say supposed, I'm not questioning whether they exist. I think there's a distinction between the attack in Texas, for example, seems to be inspired by this ideology versus being directly directed by a terror leader in Iran. We may find out differently in the future. That's just what the evidence appears to be at the beginning. Talk to me about the impact you think Trump's attack on Iran is going to have on terrorism here.
Well, it seems to be a good place to start with that is I went back and I got into it on Twitter with Matt Walsh.
I saw.
And Matt Walsh can be a bit of an ass. I like a lot of what Matt has to say, but he went on there and basically said that anybody who supported Trump's decision to bomb Iran, that they came up with their arguments 5 years ago. And my response to that was to say, Matt, I'm old enough to remember 1979. I'm old. I was 11 years old. The memory of the storming of our embassy in Tehran when the Iranian Revolution, so-called, swept the Ayatollahs, into power, and they held 66 Americans hostage, the whole country hostage, for 444 days, while an impotent President Carter did virtually nothing. We didn't come up with our desire to bomb Iran 5 minutes ago. We came up with it 47 years ago when people took an old, even then, an old Beach Boys song, Bob Iran, and changed it to Bomb Iran. I mean, so my generation, Gen X, has been looking forward to this moment for a very long time. And since that time, the Ayatollahs have killed Americans with impunity. And that's because they knew that Clintons and Carters and Bushes and Bidens and Obamas weren't going to do anything about it. And so more than 600, it's probably more in the neighborhood of 900 Americans have been killed. Listen, in the first 2.5 years of Biden's term in office, the Iranians either directly attacked or sponsored 83 attacks against U.S. troops in the Middle East. 83. So I don't see it as a case where it's mutually exclusive. Either you deal with what's going on at home or you deal with what's going on overseas. You have to deal with both. And I think I agree with people like Matt and friends of mine who say, I sure would like to see more deportations. I'm with you on that. But
Yeah.
Iran is the head of the terrorist snake. It's not the only head. This is a hydra. There are several heads. But, I liken it to this, if I may, Liz, use kind of a homespun analogy. When my kids were very small, I live in the American South, they would occasionally get into these fire ant beds. And if you don't know what a fire ant is, I'm here to tell you, they will light you up. It only takes one of them, and you know you have been bitten. So I was fighting this war of trying to to get rid of the fire ant beds in my own yard. And I would no sooner would I get rid of one than it seemed like another one would spontaneously generate it. And I realized the only way I'm going to rid my yard of them is if I can convince my neighbors to rid their yards of them as well. And when I did, suddenly we didn't have a fire ant problem anymore. And that's because they weren't just migrating straight back into my yard from the adjoining yards. This is America first. This is America first. Now, there's another crowd that says they're America first, but really what they are is they're America only. They're very short-sighted. They don't see the rest of the world the way I do, and they don't see what's going on around the world. And what's happening at home is being fueled from abroad. That's what's happening. And so I see this as America first. I don't see Ukraine as America first. This is America first. Venezuela is America first. And I trust President Trump that he's not going to get us into another Afghanistan or a Vietnam with loads of ground troops and this kind of thing that just stretches on in the so-called forever war. This to me was a sensible decision, and it's one that should have happened in 1979.
Yeah, I think most people in the Republican Party, with the exception of maybe some psycho senators who are neocons, but most of the Republican electorate feels the way that I do and the way that you do. We don't want a forever war in the Middle East. We recognize that that's a deliberate political decision. It's not necessary. It didn't have to happen in Iraq. It didn't have to happen in Afghanistan. Our politicians chose to commodify American service members to profit themselves, and it was horrible. That's blood money if there ever was an accurate definition of that. President Trump has been against forever war probably before anybody watching. He was a leader in the Republican Party in changing the philosophy of conservatism away from being, the world's policeman, away from being nation building. He spoke out about that before it was popular among conservatives. I share that. I do not want a forever war. I do trust Trump not to drag us into forever war because the best predictor of future behavior is past actions. And he's shown us that he can engage in military action, use the military, go in there, complete an operational objective, and get out without making it a forever war. And I think that there's a false binary with some on the right that says if you use the military, it's going to automatically lead to a forever war. Therefore, I don't support the use of the U.S. military. I'd actually like to ask these people if there's any circumstance that they feel that the use of the U.S. military is justified, because I've never heard them support the use of the U.S. military without acting as if it's going to automatically lead to a forever war. But I don't want to wait until our homeland is attacked again to use the U.S. military to go and invade a country. I would rather engage in an attack that, again, another, in my opinion, false narrative is that this was a preemptive attack by Trump. It's not a preemptive attack when 1,000 Americans have been killed over the course of the past decades. It is an attack that was based on the timing, meaning we had the best chance of success, but also the smallest chance of conventional retaliation and the smallest chance of a forever war happening as a result of this. That to me is a matter of timing, not a matter of, oh, we attacked first because we wanted to bomb Iran. It's a very big difference.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And people are underestimating what Iran has been doing. The Biden administration essentially funded Iranian terrorist attacks, not just October 7th, but they funded other terrorist attacks with Hezbollah and Hamas, and attacks in other parts of the globe, and attacks against the United States. And how did they do that? Now, most famously, everyone is aware of the $1.7 billion of literal pallets of cash that the Obama administration sent over to Iran. But the Biden administration sent far more than that. They released funds that Trump, $6 billion dollars that the Trump administration had frozen in his first administration. They released that. So gave that immediately to the Iranians. It's like they were saying, yeah, you've attacked us 83 times and killed, hundreds of our people. Here's $6 billion. Thank you for that. Then they ended Trump era, again, first term, Trump era oil embargoes, which allowed the Iranians to increase their oil exports by 80%, 80%, which of course was a flood of cash. And then they gave them $10 billion in sanction waivers. So, I mean, think about this. Where all of a sudden, how was Iran able to fund all these things? The Biden administration was playing both arsonist and fireman. And in October 7th, in this is part of the argument in the article that I published with the Federalist, is that the Biden administration has gotten off of the hook for the fact that they were funding terrorism. And I go back to my very firsthand personal experience where my life was in danger when I am outside of USAID in Cairo, where it's clear that that particular compound, which is a fortress, I ended up putting all this. And by the way, I got home and suddenly I was swatted. 19 armed men in body armor surrounded my house. Is there any connection? Sure seems like they're probably USAID agency that I was giving testimony to the Congressional Oversight Committee, and their questions to me were effectively this: tell us what's going on at USAID Cairo. And my response was to say, guys, you can begin to see the problem when you are high-ranking, government officials, federal government officials, asking me what's going on at a U.S. government, federal government agency that was given $50 billion a year, and almost nobody knows where it was going. Well, I can tell you where it was going. A lot of it was going into funding terrorism.
It's horrendous. And this kind of circles us back to where we started the show. The Islamification of the United States obviously poses an existential threat to the safety and security of our families and our communities. And yet in this moment, we literally just experienced an Islamist attack on Saturday night. As we face this, U.S. senators refuse to fund the Department of Homeland Security to keep us safe. I mean, the gall of these people, it's unbelievable. Larry, I appreciate your experience and your insight on this and your courage in speaking out so much. Where can people find you online?
They can find me on Twitter at Larry Taunton. That's TAUNTON. And they can find me at LarryAlexTaunton.com. Thanks for having me, Liz. I'm going to go eat a big steak and then I'm going to go home.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's safer there than it feels in our country at the moment. All right, guys, well, let me check the YouTube comments because we want to get your input on this topic. Yes, the statistics are shocking. I see many of you noting that the statistics are shocking about the ideology of Muslims in America. Larry will definitely join us on the show again. Dixie Dog says Dearborn, Michigan residents have repeatedly challenged the volume of loudspeakers, citing a city ordinance against unreasonably loud noise. Now, what Dixie Dogs is referencing is the Islamist prayers that are blasted into Dearborn, Michigan from the loudspeakers owned by the city. I mean, you want to talk about Sharia law, you want to talk about a Muslim takeover of an American city. That's what's happening in Dearborn, and residents have to resort to saying, oh, there's an ordinance against unreasonably loud noise in order to reduce the imposition of the religion of Islam on their daily lives. It's absolutely shocking. Our movement is gaining ground. People around us are waking up. The mainstream media leftist narrative is cracking. At Blaze TV, we've built a home for some of the strongest, smartest voices in conservative media. When you subscribe to Blaze TV, you're not just watching content, you're supporting a movement. You're backing creators who think for themselves. It's everything that the networks won't show you, delivered on your terms on any device, anytime. And it starts at just $8 a month. BlazeTV.com/Liz, promo code Liz.